Hey everybody, welcome or welcome back. You might have noticed that I've tried to move around a bit. It's just way too hot upstairs, so I went down to the basement where it's nice and cool to record this. See how it goes. Played around with the lighting a little bit, but now it's just getting to the point where I just got to start it so that I can end it and get ready for dinner and stuff. So, um, yeah, happy Father's Day Monday, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. Basically, as I record this, it was Father's Day on the weekend. I hope that you still have a dad and that he's one that you actually want to reach out to on Father's Day. If not, I feel for you. Maybe there's somebody else in your life that is a dad that you welcomed them. It was just occurring to me that if you are friends with a brand new parent, then it might be a nice thing to just kind of reach out to them and also be like, hey, happy first Father's Day or whatever. They probably will appreciate it. If it's their first year, even if it's not their firstborn, if they're new to this, you know, either they don't have a significant other helping them raise the kid, or they probably do, and that significant other is just as dog-tired as they are and might not, think to say, hey, happy Father's Day. So, it'd be something nice to do. Also, it's just if you happen to still have a grandpa that's alive or not, that's a really cool thing to reach out to them. Wish them a happy Father's Day, even though it's technically your grandfather. It's kind of cool. So, an April Uplinger commented in my another video that you should definitely talk to old people, ask them about their lives. That it's living history, and it's so true, and it's so funny that I don't know as much about my grandpa. I even moved out to live in the same town as him for a couple of years, and I mean, it was kind of sweet, but he kept hearing the same five stories, the ones that were PC enough to say in front of his wife, and it's sad that that she's gone now that she's passed. He's really missing her. We all are, but it is kind of nice that every once in a while, one of those stories that he wouldn't tell, or some of the language that he wouldn't use before, kind of slips out. So I went to visit my dad, of course, and while I was there, then we both called Grandpa, and he let out one little cuss word. He did mention a completely innocent story, but he did mention back in the day when he was entertaining the ladies, and it was just a completely innocent story. I think it was like hit a deer or something, but just the fact that he's talking about that kind of stuff is just awesome. I love hearing that. I want to know everything about him. I want to know everything about him because that's where Dad came from, and everything about him because that's where I came from, and I'll tell my kid some of it. They don't need to know everything. Uh, so I was just thinking also. So I have a friend that recently came out as non-binary, and this whole thing is so brand new. It occurred to me, if I had been so inclined to wish them a Father's Day, because they're non-binary now, but they have fathered a kid, and it's like, is that kind of not something you're supposed to do? Is it kind of like dead naming them, where you're reminding them of their previous gender? Or I don't know how that would work. If they're trans, either. It's like if they're now female, but they technically had fathered a kid. I mean, do you say Happy Mom's Day, Happy Dad's Day? I'm not sure. It's all brand new, and so definitely if you're trans, non-binary, I guess in some backwards places, even just gay, you know, uh, you know, please be patient with the people that this is all new to, that they really are trying and they're not doing anything. Any misstep is not intentional to hurt your feelings, and if you know that that's where they're coming from, please be understanding and just gentle reminders as opposed to, you know, uh, you know, basically shame and anything else along those lines. Um, but yeah, that was a brand new one where I was just like, okay, I'm kind of getting some of the ideas about how it all works, and the way to be polite and understanding. And then I was just like, oh geez, like what if just completely in unthinking I wished my friend Happy Father's Day? Would that be offensive? So it's just weird, like the kind of questions that previously you never would have thought to ask, and so still trying to learn the whole how it all works. Um, but it was a fun weekend otherwise. Obviously doing Father's Day Took a chunk out, and I'm so bummed. So we also, my love, we finally got her mom her birthday present. So it was actually kind of a mom's day as well. Baby girl, careful of the cords, please. Lulu the Loud wants to try and rip the computer off of the desk because she's not quite used to the setup yet, so she doesn't realize she's about to get caught. Good girl, thank you, good girl. Shake it off, yes. Go play with a toy or something. I know, I know. This I'm in the chair, and it's weird. So she's trying to get attention because she's like, I'm not sure why we're down here, Daddy. Well, I'm down here because I'm making a video, which you know this whole process, but you're down here because you want to be where Daddy is. So I don't know what to tell you. Please go, play with a toy or something. All right. Um, so yeah, you know, now having the weekends off, I've said it before, but it's been a game changer. So we try and combine some leisure as well as some productivity. So when there's a lot of plans on a specific day and a lot of running around, obviously you don't get to have as much of leisure or productivity time, but socializing time has been nice too because it used to be unless I switched with somebody, we're probably not going to go to the same place on any given day, and we can now, so that's nice. But yeah, so not much of a weekend other than that. Um, I did fall behind on the dog video, mostly because I think I mentioned this before, but I was waiting on should I do training stuff because technically if I start a dog training Zoom, which nobody else has seemed to do, and it's my first $1 million idea that has never have jumped on yet because I don't know, maybe I should scale this back and work on that some more because this does take up quite a bit of my spare time in between getting home from work, and I love getting home from work, so and taking care of Lulu and stuff. Obviously, uh, she should come priority to you guys. If I have to skip a video because she needed to go for a walk and then now it's dinner time, then so be it. But thankfully, I managed to make it work with just a couple of delays. I actually was counting episodes, and apparently, I managed to skip one of the dog ones somehow at some point. So I do technically owe a second dog video if I want to keep up the 3 video a week, which I don't think I can maintain forever, but I love that I've been able to keep it up for this long. It's one of the few things that I set my mind to and so far have been able to accomplish. But I did feel myself a couple of weeks burning myself out because it's like, okay, there's dishes in the sink. This still needs to get done. I mean, honestly, the dishes, I always get, anxiety is not the right word, but I always get stressed out about the fact, like, as soon as the dishes go above the rim of the sink, you know what I mean? Once they get piled that high, where you actually have to move the nozzle over to another spot in order to be able to fill up a glass. Thank you, Lulu, for the background music. I was just thinking that the other day too. What the heck was I gonna say? Oh, so I have allergies acting up. So in the video I just downloaded, you hear me sniff a couple of times. I don't know. It's probably not distracting. Now that I've called it out, it's probably all you can think about. I hate when that happens. I've done that to my girl so many times. But yeah, so now it's all I can think about. So I do have like some tissues on the ready. So I was planning on, if I did have to, saying apologies for my pollen allergies. And then I thought, oh man, it would be cool to get to that level of fame where there's people that actually make uh, mixed, tracks from your audio files, from previous stuff that you've said, or videos that you play that they, mash up into a cool beat. And I thought that would be a good one for the chorus because I'm just a dummy and I love thinking of stupid stuff like that, where it's like apologies for my pollen allergies, and that would somehow be the chorus. I'm silly. I'm ridiculous. What are you gonna do? So, you know, how long has that been like that? That would have, oh my god, that bugs the crap out of me. So, even that kind of gap, just little things like that. And I'm off center. Oh, this is probably driving somebody with OCD batty. I always felt lucky that I didn't have that, but it is interesting how. Oh, yeah, I should definitely change the brightness of the screen because that's pretty obvious when it times out like that. That was like so dramatic, it was hilarious. But then you won't be able to see me as well, so we'll deal with it. Maybe we'll just move the mouse occasionally. So, I've heard Howie Mandel on quite a few podcasts, and it's so interesting because this might be before a lot of people's time, but you know he has some very distinct signature things about him. So most people know Howie as host of Deal or No Deal and on America's Got Talent, and he started off as a stand-up comedian. And so one of his earliest bits was he'd take a rubber glove out of his pocket, he would put it up over his face, and then breathe in and out with the nose and making the thing inflate, and then I think he just does one big breath and then it pops off his head. And it's interesting now to look back at it, and it's like, well, now we know why he was carrying the rubber glove. Like he's this germ thing isn't something that recently, like happened, when he became famous. Like this is something he's always had to deal with, and so he would always put on rubber gloves in a public restroom. So he had one in his pocket, and he goes up on stage. And this is what's really nuts is that when he would go up on stage, he would usually have nothing planned because he loved the adrenaline of it. When he was on stage, having the adrenaline of not knowing what's going to happen next, that was one of the few times he wasn't thinking about germs. And so it was just fascinating that so he went up on stage to get the adrenaline to not think about germs for a while. He's like, I have nothing, and just feels in his pocket. Oh, rubber glove. Well, what ridiculous off the cuff thing could I do with it? And it actually became kind of a signature style of his. Even more so, I grew up on Bobby's World. He had a voice that was like very. Here's what blew my mind. So it's that same voice as Gizmo from Gremlins. Hi, Bright. And it's the same voice as, he did, what was it, like Animal from Muppet Babies or something. It's all the same voice. It's just three different versions of the exact same voice. That came from him choking, and the only amount of air through his passageway was that noise, and so people were laughing as he was choking. He finally managed to, cough it out. I'm happy, I can't breathe. And so they thought that it was hilarious, and so it was one of the first times, it was a very young age, that he, like, kind of commanded the attention of the room and, had everybody laughing. And so he practiced that voice, and then it became a very signature move of his. So, like, his OCD, his near death experience, is where a lot of the original ideas for his comedy were born, and that's so often true of comedy is that it's often born in tragedy. Like the most simplistic form is slapstick, where somebody falls down, and usually it's like a clown falling down. So it's like, all right, so it's somebody that looks silly and that that got hurt, but you don't know them, and that's always been true. I think it was something like Charlie Chaplin talked about how if you know comedy, at least physical traumatic comedy is all about distance. So if that's like a lot of the old films were shot with the comedic elements shot from far away. So when somebody got hit and went down, you mostly just see the body contorting. So he was like, comedy is far away, somebody getting hit in the head with a bucket of wet cement, but you get close enough to see the blood. Now it's not funny anymore. So it's just interesting how tragedy does birth comedy, but if you're too close to the tragedy, then that explains why people can't help themselves if they're watching a comedy special. And so the guy will talk about rape, and everybody laughs because it's a good joke, and then the guy will talk about abortion, and everybody laughs because it's a good joke, and then the guy will talk about a peanut allergy, and then somebody in the audience will get offended because their sister died of a peanut allergy, and for the rape was fine, the abortion was fine, but now all of a sudden that there's something that is close to them, it's no longer a joke that they're trying to say something, and so it's something that every comedian has had to deal with probably since the dawn of time, and especially with cancel culture, it's actually very dangerous now because that one voice could potentially lose somebody's show or lose somebody's tour, and it's a nightmare. And the problem is that it's probably always going to be something that has to be dealt with, hopefully talked about, on a more open level. But the problem is that if you are too close to the tragedy, it is kind of hard to see the comedy. To a point, like sometimes it's like sometimes if you're so devastated, like there's no more there's more giggles at a funeral than at a wedding, because it is so somber and you're just so deathly tragically sad that even just somebody's shoe getting caught on the entryway of the doorway, like you're just so sad that like anything that can get a chuckle, like your body almost needs, and so like you'd laugh at like the silliest not funny thing just because you need it so bad. So I guess there's kind of a bell curve. So if it's never even affected you, you can tell it's a good joke. And then if it gets pretty close to home, you don't see it as a joke anymore. Now you see it as a personal attack. And then, like, let's say that you're right in the middle of the moment of grieving, then it kind of levels back off where it's just like um, you might laugh at something that you normally wouldn't have, if that makes any sense. I don't know. That's probably not the best. I'm ranting. I had no idea I was going to say that. So the fact that I just came up with that off the top of my head, that was a brand new thought. So that was interesting. I'll have to think about that some more because it didn't quite work out towards the end, I feel. But anyway, hey, well, I haven't really been sniffling, but this is good for something. I always have to drop at least a few drops of wine. Thankfully, it's all on tile and stuff like that. One of the dumbest, oldest jokes, not dumbest, oldest jokes, but that I can remember is back in the day seeing Airplane for the first time and him saying that he has a drinking problem. And that just meant that whatever liquid he happens to have, he just splashes in his face, and that was his drinking problem, because it's normally supposed to mean alcoholism. When I saw that, funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And every time, like, I think he does it 3 times in the movie, and each time it's just as funny as the last when I was younger. And it's interesting that, you know, I never, when I was a kid, I don't know if I got empathy early. I can't imagine that I did, because I was a dick well into my early 30s. So I don't know why, but for some reason, my sense of humor was never the slapsticky fall over, stuff. Not when somebody was get hurt. Like, I remember that being very important on like if there was even a chance the person was hurt, I wouldn't laugh. I would go ooh. Um, so I could still laugh at physical comedy though. So I guess the best way to say is let's say somebody is walking on the ice and then their leg suddenly goes whoop, and then they go boom right on their butt. And like that technically is funnier, but I wouldn't have laughed at that because, oh my god, their butt must hurt, poor thing, I hope they're alright. And this is very young, it's really weird. So what I would laugh at though is that same person on the ice, they lose their footing and they go and then they're fine. They just, whoa, 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 and then they're okay. That would get a huge chuckle out of me. It's still the same thing. It's still somebody, losing grace. It's still somebody, not being as smooth as they would prefer to be. Uh, and arguably, the physicalness of the, you know, that's why in a cartoon, that's what would happen to the cartoon character. They would go, big tumble, splat, and that would be a lot funnier than them animating the, same cartoon character going, woo, and then being fine. That's just how I was wired for whatever reason. I was wired to be like, haha, on the person that's okay, they just look silly for a second. Oh no, on the person that was hurt. I had to have said this in a previous podcast, but that's why there was one joke in Wild Boys that I did not care for, which is they convinced, I believe, Steve-O that Snake was a dangerous snake, even though it wasn't poisonous. So they had it bite Johnny Knoxville, and so he's acting all woozy, he's on the stretcher, and Steve was genuinely concerned for him, and so he's just like, you're gonna be alright, bud. He's like, I love you too. And then Johnny's just like, dude, one more thing. And he's just like, yeah, what's that? And he goes, that wasn't a real cobra. And then he jumps up and he's just like, we got you. And I was like, that's not funny. It only works because Steve-O was genuinely concerned. Like it's like those scams that take advantage of nice people, where it's just like, help, I'm trapped in a country, please send money. Like it would only work on a nice person. If it was an asshole that was still gullible, but it was an asshole, they would just be like, oh well, good luck with that. It only works on gullible, nice people, and I hate scams like. You do a scam that takes advantage of an asshole. Like only an asshole would cash in on this, so you feel like no guilt about taking their money. That one would be, I mean, if I was a juror in your case, it would be hard for me to do a strong conviction, is all I'm saying. It's these ones, there it goes. I stopped hitting the button, and now it's going to focus. Hi, I'm here. Oh, that's annoying. Okay, there we go. Hey, I'm back. All right. Like, you need to see any. You know what? I think I look better with it fuzzy. I think that was better. So yeah, I never cared for any type of humor that injured people, but yet people that don't quite understand comedy, they just be like, well then, how could you laugh at a rape joke? Because in the joke, somebody's getting hurt. Well, that's the thing is that it depends, and I'm laughing as I just talked about rape. That's horrific. Obviously, rape itself isn't funny. I think what was it, Ricky Gervais, that was just like, rape is not funny. Not even rape is fine. Rape is, rape funny. There's nobody who's just like, well, it was dark, he was wearing a mask, and he kept on giggling. Rape in itself isn't funny, but a joke about rape, depending on the joke, is, can be funny. Um, so it's, but that's the problem is that, like, let's say you have been raped. I don't care, probably how clever the joke is. I'll probably never laugh at that because even just the word evokes the memory of that happening, and whether or not, I've had therapy about that, I might have been, able to, like, gotten over it and not wake up in night terrors and, be able to live a normal life that, I now honestly feel inside that I do deserve. I still might never laugh at a rape joke, no matter how clever, so that's why it's interesting that scuffing the line, of comedy is just like you're never gonna know where the line is unless you step over it every once in a great while. And if you genuinely effed up and you genuinely feel bad and you genuinely don't, like you want to apologize, then yeah, go ahead and apologize, But I don't know. I mean, like, so for instance, there's something like going on with this comedian Tony Hinchcliffe where the taking things out of context is just as infuriating as somebody not getting a joke because it hits too close to home. But that's one that we're probably always going to have to deal with. The intentionally taking jokes out of context, though, that is one that is infuriating and can absolutely not have to happen. And you know, that's one. I don't even know if I want to talk about it because I'm probably just going to butcher it. But basically, there's a video that came out about Tony Hinchcliffe, like saying, you chink and other hateful Asian phrases, and that was it. That was the only context, and it just looked like he's a racist that doesn't like Asian people. And it was a bit. Obviously, it was a bit. And if you see the full video, like it's a one-two punch. It's the Asian guy going out and just being like, hey, like let's just all be nice to everybody. Like let's just avoid any stereotypes. And then Tony immediately comes after that and does those horrific like things, so that when you have a one-two punch, it's so obvious that not only is it a bit, but obviously anybody that even follows him a little bit knows that he is the furthest thing from being that way. And so it was just completely where, like, if it didn't have the setup, then the punchline is going to look god awful. So F the person that singled that out and put that out there, because that cost him some tours and stuff. And I guess, I mean, I've never seen a better comeback and a quicker comeback than ever, because it's just like you got a new venue, like the first comeback episode, like I mean, just luckily enough, like almost every single comic, there's maybe two mediocre ones, and every other comic just like killed. Great episode, great friggin' like way to just like bounce back and stuff, and he deserves it. But you know, that kind of stuff is infuriating. Is people intentionally taking things out of context, and it doesn't have to just be with comedy. That's what's maddening as well. Is like it could literally be any clip where it's like you're in an interview and it, either it's taken out of context or it's spliced in a certain way. Like I think regardless of how you feel about Bill Gates, whether you think that you put a chip in the vaccine or whatever. But I remember that there was one time where like the clip very very edited made it look like he was saying something kind of wildly outlandish, and then if you saw the full interview, it was not that way at all. And that was one that's just like malicious stuff like that, like where you can take any sentences out of context, like I said rape there a couple of times. I'm sure if you splice it in the right way, it looks like I am a rapist that is pro-rape and is trying to start a meeting about having, a rapist meeting every week. Like that alone, just me saying that, like, boom, that's all you got to do is cut that, and then boom, now that's going out there where, well, dude, he said it pretty obviously in the video. He said that he was a rapist, that he wanted to do beatings. I mean, like, I can play it again if you want to, but, there's no editing here. It isn't like a deep fake. Like, he said it, and he even admitted that he said it. It's like, yeah, but if you play the 15 seconds before that, so that's maddening. But a completely different thing than the phenomenon of, what the heck is that phrase? Too close to see the elephant, or whatever. Can't remember. And I'm all about phrases, too. I should know this one better, but I think it's, yeah, too close to see the elephant, where it's like, you're standing next to a leg that you think is a tree trunk, because you didn't realize, oh my god, you step back, it's like the whole thing. Again, with the difference of being far away from something and close to something. Maybe I did a full circle. If I was a little bit better. If I started comedy when I originally intended to, I probably could have tied that into a callback to the original thing about comedy being far away. Gosh, I'm working on it though. I feel like I've gotten 0.0001% better at doing this now that I started. I feel that the beginnings are a little awkward, and if I don't pay attention, I do a lot of ums and ahs, which I can't stand. But other than that, for instance, I'm at that point where I could keep going, and I've been trying when I started out to have these be an hour, but oftentimes I've had to record other half-hour ones, and even those ones are starting to turn to 10 minutes. Um, I no longer am trying to have it be, especially because a lot of people are just like, dude, I just don't have the time. Especially if half of it's going to be ums and ahs. If you had just written a script out, 10, 15 minutes ahead of time, just written a script out so that you just stuck to the bullet points, you could have gotten all this done in 5 minutes. So maybe stop being a little bit so improv-y. You're not Rick and Morty. You can't do the interdimensional TV as well as those guys can. So, but in a way, kind of like I guess Howie Mandel, which yeah, that's a bit of a callback. So yeah, kind of like Howie Mandel. Kind of enjoy having a rough idea, maybe what I might do before I go up, but once I hit play, it's kind of all on the table. So I'm hoping that I get better. I'll never be Bill Burr, where he for years he's just had a podcast where twice a week he just rants to the microphone for half an hour, and God bless him. I mean, not only does he keep it going and entertaining, and if he does lose the thread, he just insults himself and moves on, but you know I can't imagine that it doesn't help out with his stand-up if he's able to just, have a free-form rant, like, twice a week where it's just like, what was it talking about? That, oh my god, that was actually a good one. Maybe I should try that out on stage and see if there's anything there. But what I was originally saying is that, yeah, so I actually enjoy the fact that I could probably talk more, but, again, time is that ever moving on thing that I couldn't come up with a good phrase. Ever moving on thing, yeah, that's what time is, right? So, time doesn't stop for any of us or whatever. I'm done trying to either come up with my own phrase or trying to remember one that fits, because there's going to be about a billion time phrases, and I can't think of a single one right now. But yeah, it's that time that I should probably put this away, get it uploaded, and get started in on making the house look like a home. All right. I appreciate you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for letting me rant. And I will see you next time.